So today in Memoirs from the Dzogchen Test Kitchen, I changed the way I addressed Manjushri. I did a Manjushri sadhana initiation in the 90s and repeated it several times afterwards. I don't recall how many other times, but in repeating that text, I generated initiation stains that can be transferred to others if we need them to be smarter suddenly. Now, if you want to build this up yourself, you have to go and get it yourself. And so I was doing Mo, and I wasn't sure how much Manjushri to do, so I experimented with different numbers because I'm doing so many mantras in the morning. And I finally gave him a whole mala, and that really changed how I addressed books, how books were working. It became calmer, less discursive, and the discursiveness was more productive. And so these are things, because I'm testing out the different mistakes that people make. One of the things that when you do get a guru and get into a regular program or anything like that, some of your nails will be mistakes that are bestowed upon you. Maybe they were mistakes that you came with. Maybe they gave you some other mistaken information when you're at a certain state of ripeness with these mistakes. Then you can proceed because you have to have some set of taken in work that you're mending, that you need to have so that you can, when you do achieve with these processes, you have the ability to talk to people who are below you. So you're ascending with the conduct and you're descending with the view. Other things that happened today during my meditation is when I was doing, we've been talking a lot about hobgoblins and what they are. I received a lot of different initiations and relics from my ancestors here in Indiana. And then there were people that wanted to work very hard to erase that information. But there's also this concept of the mists of Avalon, that you grow up in Avalon and then you're cast outside the mist, and you have to understand how to find Avalon and get back through the mist again as an adult on your own and use your own methods. Reopen the door and find that information again. But then there's also a lot of that, especially with women, is when we get to puberty and everything begins to change and go through a whole bunch of different cycles and stuff like that. And then which mine was, artificially manipulated. When you get to the end of your cycles, you start to remember the time before you had cycles a lot easier. And there are other things that happen, I think, with men too. There's a similar process with men as men get to a certain stage of their hormones peaking and subsiding, that they also see across underneath the mountain back to the earlier point. And that's why a lot of cultures have young children hanging out with old people. The old people pass on something that, when they were born in 1900, somebody who was born in 1800 talked to them about somebody who was born in 1700. Yeah. And that passes a lot of things. But we also have the idea, the Don Juan, the Carlos Castaneda books of the tyrant, the antagonist, the person that you have to fight in your life, that is a stimulus for your growth and development. We have those people that are, very knowledgeable. So we have this idea of maybe we want to keep things away from these people. But my experience is that they teach me more than I spill to them. That when they're doing things, and there are people in my ancestry that their power was in sharing with anyone who would sit next to them while they were muttering. That and then they became very powerful, and were feared by nations and such. Just because they would if there was nobody present to teach, they would teach the hobgoblins. And if somebody wandered in amongst the hobgoblins and sat down, they learned stuff. But that was different than the person who was sneaking into his cabin on the reservation trying to steal his bundle. Now that person didn't learn the same way as the people who would walk up to him when he was like fiddling around by the fire in the afternoon. That was a very, very different learning experience. So these are things that you need to think about. I have right livelihood, and it's easier for a woman. I accepted marriage when it was offered, or didn't, claw my way through when it was foisted off on me, and interacted in the normal sense as a woman. Marriage is right livelihood for women. Begging is right livelihood for everyone. If you are living in a situation, but stealing and graft are wrong livelihood. Okay, murder is wrong livelihood. I wasn't murdering people in order to stay social. And so these are things, one of the things that just universally excludes women from these things is that we often are that. Killing for the sake of remaining social. And a lot of men are involved with that too. So we deal with a lot of people who just are very frustrated and don't understand why they're not getting the same results. And I just keep repeating to them that I get up in the morning, I change the bowls, light some incense, do 3 prostrations, sit on the ground and read some guru chants, contemplate instructions I was given in the past, say mantras, use the strengths that were suggested to me, follow the strange instructions like make sure that you keep Mo in your method, learn some rune stuff. Divination is very important in our method. Don't be disrespectful to the traditions such as divination, such as, I was living in with people that said that, it's a bunch of dust collectors, crazy posters, and you're going to sound like a broken record. But I was able to use that to remind myself that my guru has been in my life all the way from the beginning. Otherwise, why would people be ridiculing him? So then I had the death experience and stuff like that. Why did I have the death experience? Because I was struggling with this idea of, is this a home? Is this not a home? Is this man my husband? Is this man not my husband? Because he had been doing things in the night that had broken our home. And so I was misbehaving, and I was trying to repent of the idea that I'd been given, that I was better off just being a housewife than I was being a scholar. And we were arguing, and I broke a dish because he seemed more concerned about the dish than about me, and then he broke my head. Okay? And when he was calling the guys to eat my backstrap, I woke up again. So we have these experiences in our lives because we follow the path that is appropriate for ourselves. And what's the path that's appropriate for an oddly colored girl who's not white, with an archaic genomic imprint that's wandering around, possibly even another species in a stranger in strange land kind of situation? What's the right path for that? Well, I'm still female. I have different ages. There are different circumstances around me. What are the opportunities? Where do I have resistance? Where do I have cooperation? All of these different things. When you start to take control of those things, even a man can have resistance and cooperation. I mean, I was born enslaved. That was another thing. Whether you're born enslaved or born in a family. And so all of these things relate to what kind of practice you need to do, what kind of instruction is available to you, how do you actualize your instruction. Your guru is going to use your resistance. So you don't have to be totally submitted. But you need to learn to be better, to control that, and not manipulate your guru. And one of the discussions that we had is that, he wasn't going to keep me nearby because he might decide to hit me. And people around might cause a different situation with that. And that I was like, 10 feet taller than him and in Shaolin. So, there's things like that you got to consider. So, there's all kinds of things that go into whether you're going to find a guru, how you make use of it, whether you can study from books or not. But the issue that you need to have is that you need to set a schedule. You need to learn to stick to it. And for a long time, I had to give up the morning session because of all the craziness in my life. And everybody in the meantime was saying, see, the Buddhas aren't protecting her, blah, 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 blah. They came back with Yamantaka or Wakan Tanka, and now I can study in the morning again. And now when I open my books, they make more sense. And, but even another thing my guru told me was, even you're going to focus on some parts of the sadhana, some parts of the book, some days and others. Now, with a book, you really want to try to focus all the time, but you can't. You just can't. Your mind's going to wander. You realize you turned a couple pages. Don't always go back and read those other couple pages. You might not ever come back to this book again, or you might find yourself in a situation like he was in, where people would keep bringing the same book to him over and over again so that he could read it to make sure it was a complete book. You don't know if you're going to get to repeat these books again. But there are so many practices that you could do with a written manuscript regarding focusing your mind. And it matters what the text is. You can learn phenomenon like if the text is, you want to push yourself, but if the text is too advanced for you, you're going to sweat a lot. You're going to sweat. It's going to be real tense. Sometimes you want to push yourself, and then you go back, you read some other things, you start going back to the text and going, I'm going to look at this paragraph and look for the things I understand, look for the things I don't understand, and try to cross-reference the things I don't understand. And while you're going down that, it might be a year before you get back to that book again because you've found so many rabbit holes with this cross-referencing. But when you come back, you read the book all the way through, and now you can do it as a sadhana, and you can do all kinds of different things with it. You can do the long chant of Hibenzra and it's normal 21 times and you're not sweating bullets. But, no matter how many years you spend in choir, sometimes reading these things like that one time through, you're going to be you can maybe do it the first time, but it's like any strenuous workout. You can really push yourself hard the first day, and then it might be a month before you've recovered.